citizens here that will be in the audience to speak on several of the items. We'll start the meeting off by the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Mr. Attorney, do we have a quorum for tonight's meeting?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
All right, great, thank you. First item of business, I will read the zoning appeals statement. So any zoning requests that receive an unfavorable recommendation from the Planning Commission may be appealed to the applicant, by the applicant, to the City of Wilmington Council. Appeals should be in the form of a letter submitted to the city clerk within 10 days of this hearing. Appeals for item 1 and 2 will be heard at the August 4th, 2020 City Council meeting. Any resident or property owner in the city may submit written comments through the public comment form for 24 hours after the public hearing has closed. The public comment forum can be found on the Planning Commission website, and all comments will be delivered to all members of the Planning Commission and the City Council. As a designated convention center staff person will run the Zoom aspect of the meeting so that each commissioner may be able to focus on the meeting rather than the technology. This person will be able to advance slides and presentations, see who has digitally raised their hand, and control the ability to mute the participants. All Planning Commission members should mute their microphones when they are not speaking. Be sure there is no background noise, and that you should have any alerts on your computer silenced. When a commissioner wishes to speak, please raise your hand and we will call on you individually to speak. Applicants will be limited to 5 minutes to give their presentation, and there will be a total of 10 minutes allotted for those wishing to speak in favor of a proposal. And there will be 10 minutes for those speaking against a proposal. Mr. Harbeck will be in the meeting room and will mark the time. Actually, Mr. Harbeck will not be here this evening, so our attorney will be marking the time for us. When the public hearing opens, tonight, the attorney will raise his hand at a 5-minute mark, 1-minute mark, and verbally call time when the time expires. The public has been encouraged to submit their comments in writing via a web-based form. These comments were forwarded unedited to the members of the Planning Commission. All votes will be a roll call of votes. All proper motions are made and consistency statements read into the record. The chair will call on each commission member by name, and each member should clearly state their vote and their name one at a time. After the votes are cast, the chair will state the outcome of the vote and the action. If at any time during the meeting a commission member gets disconnected from the meeting will briefly pause to give you time to return to the meeting. This process does take extra patience and extra time, so please slow down. The chair should be prepared for frequently restate comments and questions and ask for the green light to move on. Talking over each other will cause excessive delays, so please use the option of raising your hand and speak only when called upon. So have all the commissioners, or did all the commissioners receive copies of the 2 sets of minutes, one for our Planning Commission, the work session on the LDC last month, and also our June Planning Commission meeting?
Yes.
And, great. If so, are there any comments? We'll start first with the Planning Commission, the work session minutes. We need to take a vote on both sets of minutes one at a time. So are there any comments on those meeting minutes, any changes or items that need to be brought forward?
I'd make a motion to accept the minutes from our Planning Commission work session for June 3rd as written and provided.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Hovis for approval of the June 3rd Planning Commission work session minutes. Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Lyle. We will now have a roll call vote. Commissioner Hovis?
Yes.
Commissioner Lyle?
Yes.
Commissioner Bowman?
Bowman, yes.
Commissioner Cortez?
Yes.
Commissioner Sharp?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodruff?
Yes.
And Commissioner Collier, yes. So that motion passes 7-0 for the minutes from our June work session. So now we will take the June Planning Commission meeting minutes. Are there any questions, comments, or adjustments to those minutes? If none, is there a motion?
Make a motion to accept the Planning Commission meeting from Wednesday, June 3rd, 2020 as presented.
All right, we have a motion on the floor from Commissioner Hubbs. Is there a second to that motion?
Second, Lyle.
We have a second from Commissioner Lyle. We will now have a roll call. Commissioner Hubbs,
Yes.
Commissioner Lyle,
Lyle, yes.
Commissioner Bowman,
Bowman, yes.
Commissioner Cortez,
Cortez, yes.
Commissioner Sharp,
Sharp, yes.
Commissioner Woodruff,
Woodruff, yes.
Commissioner Collier, yes. So that motion passes 7-0 for the approval of the minutes from our June Planning Commission meeting. We'll move on to our old business, item number 1. And item number 1 is a development code amendment. It would be to amend the City Code Chapter 18 to add Section 18-332, Workforce Housing Mixed Use. We would amend Section 18-190, ONI 1, Office Institutional District, Section 18-194, CB, the Community Business District, Section 18-195, RB, the Regional Business District, to add workforce housing mixed use as a use permitted by prescribed conditions, and amend Section 18-812 definitions to add definitions. And tonight, Mr. Chambers would be bringing this forward from staff.
Thank you, Chair, members of the Commission. If you recall, this item was continued to this night for a date certain to allow for time to the staff, for the staff to reach out to our constituents and receive some additional public input and guidance on this issue. Due to the current pandemic circumstances, we have not been able to do that. At this time, I think staff would recommend that this item be withdrawn to allow staff to continue those efforts and then bring the item back at a more appropriate time.
All right, Brian, thank you very much for that. Members of the commission, what are your thoughts on a withdrawal of the housing mixed use, the workforce housing mixed use amendment? Mr. Bowman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Make sure, yeah, okay. I have a couple comments for staff. I don't object to the delay or continuance of the item, but there were a couple of things for Mr. Harbeck I thought might be worthy of sharing. Shall I proceed or wait?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Okay. It seems that the issue of density in terms of dwelling units is stated as either a cap of 42 units an acre or a cap of 46 units an acre if payment in lieu of option is selected. Of course, we clarified in our last meeting that all of these really are options. But when we consider multifamily as one of many others or several other components of the site, the density in terms of unit an acre is a little more abstract. Maybe to illustrate the point, I suppose if we have a range between 25 and 75% of residential units that are permitted in these three zones, with or without workforce housing, I assume one would take the total residential square footage over the total gross square footage of all, I guess, product types, and then arrive at the percentage, and that density would be applied over the percentage of acreage, or if it's applied over the parent parcel, if you will, of acreage, you've got all these commercial uses and other things. I mean, you're almost making it more dense than what might be intended. So I'd like some clarification on how the density would be calculated under those two scenarios. Because frankly, at 42 and 46 units an acre, I don't see that there's any incentive for developers to want to sign on. I think the height easing is more of an incentive than the density, unless we get clarity on what that density is and how that might actually be an incentive for developers to opt in to provide this product. So that goes to Mr. Harbeck. Do with it what you will.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. I'm listening.
I'm sorry, do we have an audio problem? Mr. Harbeck?
Me, this is Glenn Harbeck. I just wanted to let you know that I'm listening and taking notes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other comments on mixed use workforce housing? Excuse me. And the reason that for the commission, the reason that it would be proposed to be withdrawn rather than date certain is purely because we don't know if they'd be ready next month or the month after. So every time it comes up, we all have to take an action on it. So even if staff were ready and it came back in August, that's fine. But that's the reason for asking for the withdrawal, not to clearly push it out or push it off. It's more just not knowing in the uncertain times how all this will move forward. So.
Yeah, that being the case, I'd like to make a motion for agenda item number 1, case LDC-1-1019, that we approve the withdrawal of this item to be brought back as seen appropriately.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor for withdrawal of item number 1 by Commissioner Hovis. Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Lyle, I think. All right, so we will do a roll call vote. Commissioner Hovis?
Yes.
Commissioner Lyle?
Yes.
Commissioner Bowman? Commissioner Bowman?
Yes.
Commissioner Cortez?
Yes.
Commissioner Sharp?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodruff?
Yes.
Who did I miss? Commissioner Collier, yes, but that's still only 6. I didn't get 7. So did I miss somebody? So that motion passes 7-0. I think I called everybody. I just didn't mark one down.
Sir.
So that motion passes for a withdrawal, and the staff will bring it back at a date in the future. All right. Agenda item number 2 is new business. Agenda item number 2 is Land Development Code Amendment, where we would amend the City Code Chapter 18, Section 18-287 to modify the frontage requirements for motels, hotels, and residential hotels in the ONI 1 Office and Institutional District. Brian Chambers, our senior planner, will be presenting this for us tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next slide, please. Next slide. Thank you. Next slide, sorry. There you go. The Land Development Code currently allows motels and hotels in our ONI 1 districts by right with prescribed conditions. Those prescribed conditions include a minimum lot size of 1 acre, direct access to a major thoroughfare or access to an adjacent roadway that connects to that thoroughfare at a signalized intersection, a minimum 200 feet of lot frontage along a major thoroughfare, and then a minimum separation of 200 feet from a single family district, 100 feet from a multifamily district. And there's also a no light trespass on adjacent residential properties. Next slide, please. The applicant proposes to remove the major thoroughfare frontage requirement. The intent of the frontage and access provisions are to ensure adequate access is provided to these hotels. Staff believes the current frontage requirement is not necessary, could actually result in additional driveway connections or conflict points along our major thoroughfares. The current requirements for direct access or access to the signalized intersection would remain in place with this, if this amendment was approved. Our comprehensive plan supports an interconnected roadway network that limits direct access to major thoroughfares. The plan also encourages new development to access internal streets as opposed to having direct access to a major road. The proposed amendment would remove an unnecessary frontage requirement for hotels and still maintain adequate access to the public road network for these uses. Staff believes the proposal is consistent with our comprehensive plan and the city's adopted focus area, and the request is reasonable in the public interest and recommends conditional approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I believe the applicant is present and has a presentation as well.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chambers. Appreciate that. Are there any questions of staff at this time from the commission? All right, seeing none, is the applicant here and ready to make a presentation?
Okay, I apologize. The microphone was not on. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Board. My name is Matt Nichols. Planning Commission, I'm sorry. My name is Matt Nichols, and I'm here tonight representing the applicant. Thank you for the opportunity to make this brief presentation, and I have a slide presentation. I'll move on to the next slide, please. This is straight out of the staff report on pages 2 and 3. I put this up here because I think it's the first time I've been involved in a project where I've had the solid blue circles of strong support on all the items that the staff has identified. So I was looking forward to putting this slide up there, and staff does support this. So in light of that, I will make the presentation brief. Next slide, please. Just to give you a real world example of how this text amendment came about is my client in this instance is proposing to put a hotel on the site shown in yellow. To give you some context, at the top of the screen is Sir Tyler Drive, and you can barely make out the entrance, the main entrance to the Mayfair development on Military Cutoff Road. The property in yellow is the property that sort of brought this text amendment about. The property is located on Ashes Drive, which is not considered a major thoroughfare in the city. Next slide, please. This is a business park development. We think it's a great site for a hotel. Next slide, please. This is looking to the south on Ashes, and the property that we're talking about is there to the right side of the screen. Next slide, please. And as you can see, and as I'll show on the next slides, there's actually a hotel that's already built there, and the proposed hotel site that we're talking about is actually would have a shared access with that. I know we're not here talking about a specific hotel project, but again, just to give you an example of how the amendment that we are requesting, we think is really an unnecessary part of the code and is actually contrary to some of the principles in the comprehensive plan. So next slide, please. As you can see, the site that I'm using as an example is shown in blue. It is on Ashes Drive. It does have direct access to Military Cutoff Road. However, it does not have the frontage. There is an existing hotel immediately adjacent to it, and that hotel uses Ashes Drive as its access through this property as one of the accesses. Next slide, please. So under the proposed amendment for the commission's consideration, this would allow this site, as well as we think others would be able to take advantage, so to speak, of this benefit and this beneficial change in the code. Next slide. The comprehensive plan is detailed in the staff report. As this commission very well knows, disfavors strip development pattern, discourages curb cuts and excessive driveways, and encourages nodal development in a grid pattern if possible. Next slide, please. What the proposed amendment will do, it will encourage these principles in the comprehensive plan. It will encourage a nodal development of clusters near major corridors, and it will also encourage limiting driveway accesses and limiting driveway connections to a major street, but still allowing for the development. Next slide, please. Under the proposed amendment, this would encourage a compact development, which is favored in the comprehensive plan, and it would also facilitate management access strategies for neighboring properties. Next slide, please. As Mr. Chambers pointed out, there's still, the protections are built into section 18-287. The lot size requirement remains, the access requirement will remain, still will be set back from residential, and the lighting protections will also remain. So we're just talking about the one provision. Next slide, please. I won't go through these next few slides, but I know that the economic development from the city economic development and growth standpoint, that travel and business travel and tourism is a very big part of our economy. Next slide. And I believe we put this in our application that the room occupancy tax, in this case, we're talking about hotels, motels in particular with this text amendment, but the room occupancy tax is a big number in the city's budget every year. And next slide. And this is my last slide, and I'll end where I started with the staff recommending support of this proposal. We appreciate your consideration, and I'm certainly glad to answer any questions that the commission may have. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Nichols. We appreciate your time. Commission, do you have any questions for the applicant at this time? And seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Nichols. We will now open the public hearing. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to come forward and speak in favor of this item, please step forward now. Okay, seeing no one in favor, is there anyone in the audience that would be speaking against this item? All right, seeing no one coming forward and all being given time to speak their opinion, we will close the public hearing at this time, and it will go to the commission. Commission, what is your thoughts on item number 2?
Mr. Chairman, before we take that step, it's my understanding the city did not receive any comment online about this item. And if the commission takes action, we will keep that open for 24 hours after the meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. All right, members of the commission, any comments to item number 2?
Regarding item agenda number 2, case number LDC-1-720, I would recommend approval of this request that is consistent with the objectives and policies of the following plans adopted by the City of Wilmington: the Create Wilmington Comprehensive Plan, the City of Wilmington Strategic Plan. The Planning Commission considers its approval to be reasonable in the public interest based on the following conclusion: that the proposed amendment would remove an unnecessary frontage requirement for hotels in the O&I district while still maintaining adequate access to the public road network it provide. Therefore, the Planning Commission would recommend approval of this request.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Hubbs. We have a motion for approval of item number 2 made by Commissioner Hubbs. Is there a second to this motion?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Bowman. We will now have the roll call vote. Commissioner Hubbs?
Yes.
Commissioner Bowman?
Yes.
Commissioner Lyle?
Lyle, yes.
Commissioner Woodruff?
Yes.
Commissioner Sharp?
Sharp, yes.
Commissioner Cortez?
Yes.
And Commissioner Collier, yes. So that motion will pass 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Nichols, for being here, and staff, we appreciate your diligence in moving this forward. That ends our regular agenda items for the evening. Now, are there any items from the commission that you would like to bring forward, or any comments, questions, or other things you would like to talk about? Okay, I don't see anyone raising their hand, so we will move forward. Are there items from the staff that we need to have brought forward? Are there any items from the recent city council hearing or any of those things that we need to go forward with?
City council meets one time in July, and that will be on the 21st, and they'll be hearing the College Acres Drive conditional district rezoning requests. So we'll update you at your August meeting as to what happened at that meeting.
Okay, all right. Mr. Attorney, do you have anything today?
No, sir. Next meeting will be August 5th, and we'll be back to the regular LDC review for 2 hours at 3:30 to 5:30, and then we'll have our regular meeting after that at 6.
Okay.
So, thank you very much.
Yep, you're very welcome. All right. Any other parting questions or comments that we have before we would close the meeting this evening? If not, Commissioner Hubbas?
Yes, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion for Commissioner Hubbas. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Commissioner Lyle. All in favor, shake your head. Aye.
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 We are now adjourned. Happy 4th of July to all of you. Be safe this weekend. Stay safe and stay well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye all.
Bye-bye.